there we go. We did it, everyone. Okay. Okay, I pulled up 4 things. This GPT-4 drift, we haven't talked about this yet. Some people think it's bullshit. Some people think it's not bullshit here, which essentially is people are saying that GPT-4 is getting worse and worse and worse. I think it's true. So that's one.
That's definitely true.
Another one is this crazy.
Probably true. It hasn't affected me too bad.
I got a bunch of things to say about that paper.
Nice.
And I see we're getting an LK99 request. I actually have an AI angle on that one.
Oh, you do?
Today.
Oh, you do? Okay, we can dive into that too. Okay, so we got LK99 in the docket today. We got GPT-4 getting worse. I had this prompt injection. You see this in here, and also, do you guys see what these prompts look like? It's amazing.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why this is one surprising to people. I thought we knew this. I mean, like the paper's good, but I thought we knew this.
I guess. Well, now I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
The images were really cool, though. Did you see?
Yes. What they actually show what the injections look like are insane.
Yeah. The Porsche injection is cool.
There's something that's just so metal about, neural exploits. Like you're actually talking to a computer system and trying to convince it to do something bad. It's like middle school all over again. I
could share my current thread. It's a superhuman thing. You need plugins in a long thread. Yeah. So yeah, that's another one to pull up here, which we can dive into. I'm loading it up now, so I don't have to load it up again. Also, this is just for Rob here. Only for you. I'm very excited. RT2, new language for talking to robots here.
I love that name.
Yeah.
I want to
almost
put the
R2D2.
in charge of a robot.
Yeah,
yeah, dude. We need to buy a little robot actually. And
we need a robot arm for the studio. The videos they shared with us were so cool. I think I saw one where they said, pick up the extinct object, and it grabbed a dinosaur.
Yeah, that's great. That's scary. Okay. Or it's going to be like, pick up the extinct object. Oh, there's nothing extinct. Chain of prompt. Make one of these extinct. Okay, done. Now pick up that object.
I wonder what that API looks like. How many function calls are we talking about here?
Began, that's genius. We got to get you on the red team, bro.
Yeah, 100%.
Like how many actions does this robot have, and what is it translating?
What do you mean?
Like, so that it's inbounding the language and then translating that into, probably like similar to like OpenAI's function call.
Yeah.
Google's doing that. I'm curious how many different functions that we're talking about here that the language model can translate to.
Totally.
To action.
But look at this. This is what we need right here. Push ketchup to the blue cube. I mean, I'm in. I'm down. Like once.
I don't know if I could do that, you guys.
Yeah, that's tough. Okay.
And yeah, to Ken's point, I'm really curious about what's going on under the hoods. I think this builds upon Google's action token framework, where they actually kind of have created a sequential linguistic encoding of robot arm articulations. And so it's actually kind of doing the motions the same way it's saying the linguistic tokens. It's saying an action token, which is so cool.
I'm not able to find. I need to search Google to this thing.
I don't know if you'll find something like that on Google very easily.
Yeah, they're not giving it to me. Okay, never mind. They want me to authenticate. Okay, so
yeah, this is more me, Began, connecting the dots to a previous paper from this group where they it was something called action tokens, but it was exactly like them creating a linguistic.
Are you saying that there are tokens different than the tokens associated with linguistics and words that represent actions in a space of actions? Or is this just kind of like shorthand for translation process from language to action?
Exactly the former. That, they've actually structured the space of particular robot arm articulations like in a linguistic sequence.
So is that using a multimodal model from the start?
Exactly.
I see. Okay.
At least I believe. I remember seeing this paper out of the same group, and I think this is probably an extension of that work. But it's hard to say for sure. That's why we're kind of here to kind of try to put the pieces together.
So what would a pipeline kind of look like from the training of the foundation model, where the space can be? Well, is that a single space representation of these different data structures, or is there like kind of like a mesh of spaces and overlaps? Sort of like if you do a principal component analysis and you see two clouds and they overlap with each other.
Oh, good question. And again, don't want to rabbit hole too much on this because I haven't read the original action tokens paper for a while. But yeah, I believe it's the former. Like I think that the robot arm has a finite number of articulatable pieces that typically have like a circle for their motions. Because it's something that can rotate. It has a couple elbows that move through an angle. And yeah, very much like they're sort of structuring all the different motions as like all of the sayable things in a grammar. You might think of it that way.
Interesting.
And then very specifically, they're applying multimodal learning. So the same kind of thing that allows ChatGPT to connect a piece of text to an image, this is connecting a piece of text to a set of robot articulations. To share just one more thing that's kind of cool about this is I had a good friend who designed robot arm articulations for the automotive industry. Mm-hmm. And it's a crazy project space because, you maybe get a contract for $10 million that's going to take a year, and your goal is to make all of the arms in like Toyota's factories 10% more efficient.
Yeah, I played Factorio. I know exactly how that goes. 10% is a big deal, but
that's
then
a good upgrade.
But then you have a problem because then you might overload your belts and
Compounding exponentials, bro.
Well, so maybe let's just start with since you did say you have a talk here. Let's start with this whole LK99 thing. Apparently, you have an AI take here, Stanley. What the heck is happening here? I saw this news. Everyone was very excited. Everyone's a semiconductor expert now. What is going on?
Man, maybe we could open up that picture on the second picture on the right there. It kind of shows the actual structure of the compound. And again, like everyone in the scientific community has been like edge of our seat about this. This is potentially such good news for the whole world that potentially this structure we're seeing here on the screen is a superconductor at room temperatures. And right now everybody is racing to confirm this. Probably midweek next week we're going to get a thumbs up or thumbs down. And quite frankly, it's going to be a different world based on the answer that we get. Began, almost feel a little bad for bringing this up as a topic because it isn't obviously initially directly AI related.
I want to talk anything nerdy, but wait, the only thing is you got to slow down a little bit here because what is? I don't even know it's superconductor. What is a superconductor?
No, you're totally right, and thank you for the prompt. I love talking about this stuff. So when electricity flows through a conductor, it encounters what's called resistance, and that's basically all of the little electrons bumping into the material. This is why your cell phone gets hot, because as electricity flows through, the electrons are resisted by the conductors, and then that creates heat. Superconductors, there is zero resistance. There is absolutely no energy exchanged between the electrons flowing through the material and the material. Mm-hmm. This should strike everyone as weird. This is a quantum phenomena. This is what we call a non-classical phenomena. It's not explained by the classical laws of physics. Some weird stuff's going on in here. In some sense, you might say the universe is glitching out, and it can no longer. This is how I describe it, Began. The universe is glitching out. We've overloaded the graphical processor of the universe. It can no longer render friction on an electrochemical level.
Okay, and so not having friction is a good thing because we can have electricity travel faster?
Not so much faster, but with no resistance, and so that is an incredibly more efficient way to transmit energy.
Okay.
But there are a number of other applications. One I was talking about with Tom that's pretty cool is monorails, right? Monorails need to have magnets that allow them to levitate off their tracks. And so in Japan right now, they actually have to use liquid nitrogen to cool the magnets because they're using superconductors that are not room temperature. Mm-hmm. This would open up the ability overnight to have incredibly energy efficient and easy to build public transit systems all over the world.
So this doesn't apply to America then?
Shit.
Well, no, listen,
That's one I haven't thought of before.
They're going to fight us for every step of the way.
Yeah.
And I'll see if I can pull up like a little matrix that shows different applications, but it really ranges anywhere from completely revolutionizing medical imaging to potentially allowing, for example, we saw in the past year or two the news of a net energy producing fusion reaction. But the expectation is that could take 15, 20 years to be commercially efficient at scale. Room temperature superconductors could make that next year.
Yeah, and notably that 15, 20-year quote is the same quote they quoted 15, 20 years ago. So without something like this, it might not be achievable.
Listen, don't get me started on the whole fusion technology thing. So this is a very surprising result. As I mentioned, typically in order for these materials to superconduct, they need to be cooled to unimaginably cold temperatures or subjected to an extreme amount of pressure, like we're talking, Titan submarine style pressures.
And even then still be a little cold. The high pressure one is negative 23 C.
Exactly, yeah. And so this is so surprising, and then it actually turns out that there's just something so unique going on in this material that might create the effect. If you see this image here, you'll see that there's these black dots. There's these 8 black dots, 4 on each side of the material. And then we got some weird triangles.
Yeah.
So the triangles are phosphates in a matrix, and then the black dots are lead. And there's an electrochemical force that wants to pull the black dots into the center of this molecular lattice structure that we're looking at. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that that force applies the pressure that's needed to the inside of the channel by pushing on the phosphates. And so it's really quite remarkable. It's like an interior electromechanical pressure that seems to be creating a superconducting channel. It's really shocking.
So who's going to get rich from this?
Well, here's what's kind of weird. It's something that is buildable with very basic materials. Some materials, for example, there's been a lot of Breaking Bad jokes over the past week because red phosphorus is one of the inputs. And so red phosphorus used in the synthesis of methamphetamines. And so
we know we're not idiots. Like,
listen again. Well, many of us do from Breaking Bad, right? Like, there's a whole Breaking Bad plot line where they got to go around to pharmacies and buy matchbooks to take the red phosphorus off the match heads. But anyway, most of these materials are fairly easy to make. It's kind of a specific recipe, but it also uses material science apparatus that's relatively common. So this might not really be something you can control in a traditional way. And that's actually a little bit of what's behind the weird drama with the authors kind of racing to take credit. They wanted to maybe get this out there before someone else could replicate. But anyway, so the part that's really interesting for AI, and so this relates to a Twitter thread that I saw. How the heck did they find this thing? And so there's actually a pretty crazy story where it was these 2 random guys in their lab right after graduate school who, were testing a bunch of different stuff, and they got a weird blip on some experimental results and ended up not investigating it until maybe just a few years ago when their mentor passed away, and on his deathbed asked them to go look at this material again because he had some kind of hunch. So it's just one of those very human stories that often exist behind scientific discovery, where it's some combination of experience, intuition, and interpersonal magic that allowed this to be discovered. But then here's the question. Could we have discovered it another way? Is there an AI that could have discovered this? And so I know a little bit about this problem space because my original training in cluster computing was for quantum informatics. And so that's where we use large computers to simulate the quantum chemical interactions of materials on what are called spin lattices. And so someone actually predicted how much compute power, Began, we would have needed to find this thing with a traditional quantum spin lattice computation. And it's something like 100 million to 1 billion times more compute than is available at the largest current computer that does this kind of stuff.
So we have no supercomputer right now that could have discovered this, but we have the tech to be able to discover it technically. We just don't have the resources dedicated towards it.
Testament to edge compute.
What are the combinatorics there? What are the odds that we discovered it before having that ability to do it computationally? Exactly,
right? And so this is the big punchline for me is with our current approach to building computers, so without quantum computers, I don't think we would have been able to find this computationally. This is obviously why quantum computers are very exciting, but if nothing else, I think this is a little bit of a testament to the idea that human intelligence really does have some gas left in the tank. There probably are certain things that we're going to be discovering for quite a while, and we'll still have our contribution.
I like that. Just a little bit of gas left in the tank, just a little bit left. We can discover a couple more things before it goes.
Watch out, doomers.
I do.
Luck strikes again.
Wonder, Stanley, I noticed that on the LK99 Wikipedia page, it has the smiles for the material. And that's like a machine learning applicable, or more specifically LLM applicable medium of smiles. And yeah, I guess I haven't seen it like used for materials. If you go down a little bit, and they also have this really awesome, go up to the right, and they have this 3D JS mole interactor. So if you go up a little bit, there's the
interactive
smiles.
image, yes.
Yeah, it's super cool how Wikipedia puts these.
Oh,
in.
this one,
up.
right? I got to see it. I see it.
Yeah.
And it looks like next to where it says smiles, maybe we can go there next.
Yeah, how cool. It's such a pretty.
What do we got here? It
structure.
doesn't look right. Can we zoom in or?
You can turn it around a little bit, but
I have no clue what's happening on this website here. Oh, whoa. I'm doing something. I don't know what this is showing me.
Do we got maybe a zoom in with Control Plus?
Nope.
No.
That does not work.
Listen, this is a testament to doing a live show, gentlemen.
Okay. No. Doesn't work.
But yeah, maybe, Began, if we go back to the wiki page, and maybe we could start with the first thing Rob was saying. Down there on the right hand, it says smiles under
these.
identifiers, and there's a show.
go back.
You want to go back and then click the show button that's next to. There we go. Bam. So this is just kind of a fun thing, right? You're used to maybe seeing molecules represented as these kind of like two-dimensional diagrams, but like Rob shares, it's actually possible to encode a molecular structure as a string of characters. And hey, don't we have some AIs that understand those kind of things? So
Yeah.
there actually have been a number of large language models trained on chemical smile strings. And this is a really fun thing. I've actually used this in some material discovery science where we have a certain molecule that's very close to the desired function. And then we ask the AI to kind of suggest a couple similar but different molecules. And then we sort of test those. But no, I mean, listen, I'm hopeful that, maybe machine learning, maybe greater computational power will let us conduct searches for these kind of materials. But yeah, it was actually quite sobering to see the estimates on just how much compute we would have needed to find this one.
Totally. Yeah. Okay. So smiles is an alternate way of showing the structure of different chemical compounds in a text format.
Yep.
Okay. Nice. And I don't have to use any fancy, what is it called? Like LaTeX
Right.
fanciness, which, yeah. Okay.
Latte.
Right. And isn't that what the kids use?
Latex.
Oh, you say latex? No.
No.
It is 100%
no.
LaTeX.
It is-
I will fight for that. Okay.
All right. Well, let's ask the audience.
I've literally
latex or
had
latex?
an entire math colloquium laugh at me for saying latex.
Yeah. Do you want that, guys? Yeah. Sure. You'll sound normal here, but Harvard will laugh at you or so.
I want the math nerds
Yeah.
to laugh at me.
Latex is a way better meme.
I'm now going to say latex from now
Please
on.
do not
so
say latex.
Get ready, everybody.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe so.
Latte. What are we, French, dude? Like latte?
First
Latex.
of all, how do you say Jason? Please do not say Jason.
Jason.
Oh God.
I just don't.
Just song. What are we like?
This is why-
90s R&B like female top 10?
Yeah. Wait. How do you say jQuery?
It's not Jason.
I've actually rotated anything with J. I
Yeah.
now use YAML only.
Thank you. Well, first,
Oh,
first of all, yeah, definite optimist spelled it
Jason.
properly. There's a little. Okay.
Y'all.
Maybe let's keep diving in here. So this paper has been a topic we've been meaning to talk about it, which is this: is ChatGPT's behavior actually changing over time here, right? So this is one of those things where I think all of us, if you're using it practically, are definitely experiencing things where I'm showing my friends stuff, and I'm like the next day, like, hey, check out this great prompt I did. We can't do that anymore. I'm like, I did it yesterday. I have history of it yesterday, and I find myself fighting it more. I haven't really been looking at is the code it's giving back better because
It's worse.
Yeah, it does feel maybe worse because I'm using the code less and less is what I would say right now.
Yeah.
I'm using it for more. Yeah,
I have to write more of my own code now.
it's terrible.
Even Copilot.
Copilot.
Copilot's awful now.
the context of this is so interesting too, because
Can we
the
chill on the
Yep.
the
The,
visuals right there for a second?
Right
that
here.
kind of shows what's worse.
And
And,
that-
what's
There we
better.
go.
and yeah. So anyway, context of this paper, anecdotally, over the past few months, people have been sharing in the AI community that they feel GPT-4 is performing worse and worse pretty consistently. And there's been a big back and forth of people kind of calling out OpenAI for this on Twitter and OpenAI denying that anything is changing. And so this paper came out as kind of like a definitive expression of what the community is observing. And anyway, there's a little bit of question about how, like, did it really go from 97 to 2%? These are believed to be pretty cherry-picked and you know, sort of dramatic in making the case, but the kernel of what they're expressing seems to be 100% accurate.
Totally.
Yeah. My guess is that, you know, given if you have to assume that what was revealed in the leak is not 100% true, but like mostly true. And you know, if they are running some process to choose the best model to respond based on that, the mixed model approach, they had the expert model. There's space there for an optimization process in terms of compute efficiency. And you may not actually be changing the model weights, but maybe that optimization process could select different models for responding to different prompts and questions. And that relates to changes in accuracy.
So if this GPT-4 is like an 8,
like look at GPT 3.5's change on the first question. It went from March to being a lot better in June. Maybe that's, you know, these changes aren't necessarily directionally bad. Like Stanley said, these may be cherry-picked examples, and they're just kind of like worse and better in different places because of those optimization.
So the idea is that if there's an 8-way-headed model that GPT-4 actually is, each one of those models, however they're working together, one might be better at math, one might be better at writing, one might be better at, I don't know, knowing the laws. And maybe potentially when we're asking a question now, instead of hitting the math one, it hits the dumb English one and gets you a dumb answer or something like that. And GPT-3 is better at hitting the right one maybe, and we just don't know. Is that kind of what you're saying, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, it's all speculation at this point. Even this paper is like any suggestions they made has to be speculation, because without like seeing the underlying code of the system and the weights, like you really don't know what could be influencing that. And it's not even really to say that when you do have the code and the weights, you fully understand what is influencing changes, but you can more reliably track performance changes over time because you have, you know, potentially different model checkpoints or, you know, different versions of your stack.
It seems like there's kind of an across the board like lower functionality of GPT-4 right now, if that's what I'm hearing and sort of also seeing, and I'm not close enough to this.
Yes, thank you. That's all.
I'm going to make this a lot closer to my face. Okay. So do you think that given that it does seem that way, and we were sort of chatting a little bit before this, are there economic reasons for this that it might be?
They already got my $20 a month, so it's easy. Now they say, okay, send them to GPT-2, the idiot.
It's subscription services. That's how they get you.
Oh, 100%.
There's definitely economic reasons. They're trying to make it less expensive to run. We know GPT-4 is wildly expensive to run, especially that version that they launched at the very, very start. I'm sure they've done a bunch of tuning by now, but
I think having been involved in the kind of cost cutting on some of these systems, this feels very much to me like they're just cranking the cost efficiency as hard as they can.
Yeah, if you remember from that leak, one of the key things was the trade-off between compute for training and compute for inference, and that the inference cost of compute was way higher than training. So like you want to strike the right balance so you can do big training runs. If you do too much inference and have too many users pinging your API, you're not going to have enough compute to do the big training runs that you need to get to the next versions of your model, and that keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, so on pure conspiracy theory, right? We're saying, and we're here for a reason, because we're going to do a class action lawsuit, because we're all going to get together, all of us who paid $20 after we used GPT-4. We're like, this is sick. Here's my $20 a month, and then boom, they're sandbagging us with the terrible model here. So the worst case is they just said, okay, great, just for cheaper reasons, let's give them. It could be a model that's cheaper to run, less trained, all those things, right? On the other side, it could be because the model is getting worse because of us using it. Is that possible?
So
because we're idiots.
I'm so sorry, but I just was meaning to say too, Freedom DAO is mentioning this topic, which is like, maybe it is our fault. Maybe our stupidity has made ChatGPT stupider.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you think about, like, if we go back to the classic example of Tay, that was Microsoft's chatbot. that was like, you know, it's going to learn off the internet.
It's not
And
becoming more racist, though. It's just becoming
dumber.
dumber.
Dumber. Well, I'm saying back in the day, the internet was maybe more racist, and now we're dumber, and so now we're just moving it toward there. But yeah, like I'm down for the argument that we're so dumb and we're talking to it. Imagine, like, having the whole internet talk. Yeah.
Well, I've heard it's like, is it Eternal September? The Eternal September theory, where, you know, the internet was super specialized and anyone on the internet was really into being on the internet. And then once the platform gets more, people start using it, the barrier of entry goes down. It's a really kind of bummer theory, because it's like, it shows that the more people that are on a platform and the harder it is to get on a platform, it might create better content.
Yeah, 100%. And oh wow, what a great page! I can't wait to go. Can't go.
The internet is full.
Later.
Go away. I want that shirt so bad. We need to start reselling those. That is literally the most fire.
But these
merch.
models were trained on large databases of idiot people, largely, right? Like,
Yeah, it was trained on Reddit. Okay, like,
oh my god,
Reddit. Like, do you know how dumb it has to be? It has to be the most like. That's why it's like the model's the most scared model ever. Everything has to do anything. You're like, could you tell me a joke? You're like, jokes are offensive. Let's not do that. And you're like, oh, you're from Reddit.
That's why I wonder if it was some of like the post-processing filters and all of the, like, you know, from on the legal side, there's so much being thrown at OpenAI and
yeah, I mean, honestly, like after seeing Llama 2, I have to give OpenAI some credit, and obviously they've thrown a lot more money at it than Facebook did, but their RLHF model is much more helpful than it is compared to Llama's RLHF model.
Well, so that's a great point. So from the Llama 2 paper, the only thing that really stuck with me, because I'm a dummy, is that the opposite of usefulness is safety, right? So Llama was we can either make the model give you better answers, more accurate stuff, answer all your questions, or we can make sure we're not going to, hallucinate, say things wrong, cause anything illegal here. You could see OpenAI getting all of the pressure they're getting from everyone from, it's telling me to divorce my wife and this and that. They're just dialing up that safety knob, making it more useless, I guess you could say. And we're just like, it's getting worse when they're actually trying to protect all the people out there who are right now saying, like, how do I get back at my bully in school? Which
maybe the computer's lying to you is good.
Maybe. Rob, can you actually break down this Eternal September thing too?
Yeah. I mean, to my understanding, it was when the internet became not a hobbyist thing. And it was, I think it had to do with investment cycles, that they would send out the discs every September. So there was always people coming in to new groups in September. So these groups of people who were really into the internet were pretty much, established by September. The new folks have been onboarded. But then when, I forget what was the Eternal September specifically, but something enabled exponential growth.
I got you. Okay, so at one point every September, it's this when all the new users get on. Yeah. But then now every single day there's more new users getting on. We're in Eternal September and the internet is now
September
full.
1993 will go down in that history as a September that never ended. That's funny. That's 2 months before I was born.
Oh, wow. Interesting. You kind of wrecked it there.
It
sounds like, it was all good. And then all of a sudden you had to pop in. The internet's, imagine being born and you're like, oh, the internet seems cool. It's like, it's full. You're like, oh, okay. Like, sorry.
And
oh, go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
Oh, I guess it's like, that's the argument for stuff like Mastodon and some of those platforms that have like, you have to really care to post on it. So,
100%.
Yeah.
This is a question. What's the difference with Claude? Because I used Claude recently and I was actually very impressed with the results that I...
Well, that's very interesting. If you wanted to share some more specifics on that, I would love to hear. Claude 2 being built by a really amazing team. Its early performance got a lot of criticism, and I actually haven't looked at it too much since then. My perspective was that they were kind of trying to optimize some certain functional KPIs without considering the holistic performance. But yeah, one of the things we're really seeing about these types of products is that it isn't something you build and then you're done. It's something where you really need to be tracking performance, be tracking the interaction patterns that users have with the models, and then continually, training, tuning, and optimizing.
Yeah, so that's super interesting. Somebody says that Claude is good with text but not code, and I was using it for text, and I was really impressed with actually if you ask it to write something or a couple of paragraphs, usually using ChatGPT or using GPT-4, it's it's, you have to modify it quite a bit. And I was impressed with the output.
Totally. So they have a couple, because Claude has a couple different models here, and I have to find a login for here to actually log into one of them. But one of them was specifically trained on like creative writing, and they said they were going deep on how do we help people actually just write. And so code and everything's terrible.
Yeah.
And it was pretty nice for that. Also, it seemed to be kind of like internet dumb, whereas when you ask like sometimes you ask GPT-4 for it, like it's like some cheesy version of the internet that doesn't exist, where it's just like AI hashtag learning hashtag the world emojis whatever. It seems like it would just give me writing, like not writing. So that makes
increasingly like the coding only models are like being better at coding too. Like I'm not sure if y'all have loaded up Wizard Coder 13 billion locally.
What?
but
No.
Wizard Coder
Let's
is
see if we can get
an
that on
excellent
there.
model.
Wizard Coder.
Yeah, I think that's a testament to some now open source data sets coming out for code and code instruction that's really been able to speed them up.
It's something that we started talking about on this show right after the original Llama leak, but it really seems like the model training and the compute will be increasingly commoditized, and that the real magic will come from high quality data and robust systems that allow humans to guide the direction of the data and the training towards performance. I see Token Show in our chat is commenting on the 100,000 token length, and the idea that that's long enough to understand patterns spread throughout even books and large PDFs. So this is just a really interesting thing, because it gets down to like what are the properties of the data type, right? So if you're looking at code, a lot of your kind of token length is going to be shorter, but the internal complexity is going to be higher. And then, like I always think about what if you tried to have an AI write Game of Thrones? Well, I think actually like paragraph by paragraph it would do very well, but the magic in those books comes from the things that happen kind of slowly, chapter by chapter by chapter. And so that might be something that Claude is like sort of very uniquely able to understand at this point.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So with Claude, I have been trying to mess with 100K context. It's terrible. It literally forgets everything at the end. So I actually took a couple of these episodes, transcribed it with Whisper, and sent it to Claude, and I was like, give me a summary of everything we talked about. And when you actually looked at the end of it, what it was doing, it was like nothing. Like it would just ignore the second half of the convo, and I would say, let me do it again, and put it back in, and it would like.
Yeah, I think we were talking about that the last time I was here a few weeks ago, that those token limits, may or may not be completely accurate, or if it's actually
Watch it. I think it's a lie. They're just like 100K, chop it in
Yeah.
half,
So,
return the
this
results.
is,
They're not even noticing.
Where I was sharing, I think that they wanted very much to be able to say, we got the biggest token limit. And so they kind of put the
Well, they spent a lot of
thumb
money
on
on
that
marketing
end of the
thing,
scale.
yeah.
It's clearly being done in some really fucky way, because the center of whatever text you put in starts to just get completely ignored.
Fucky way. is a
Super
technical
fucky.
term.
Yeah,
fucking
very
way.
technical.
Yeah. Well, I did a couple different experiments where I was taking the show and I was like, how much do I have to divide it up to get accurate, estimates of what the topics are? And I swear to God, when I did Claude, I said, what do we talk about for an hour and a half show? And it was like AI related topics. And I was like, what else did we talk about? And it was like AI related, and how the future would be. And I'm like, bro, this is pathetic. And then meet with Claude. I just go, great, let's just go every 2 paragraphs. And it's like the detailed comparison of how medical, so I don't know.
Yeah. So it's interesting for me because I'm often not inputting large amounts of text into these. I even with Claude, I don't. A lot of the documents I deal with are confidential, and so I don't actually put them into these models yet. But I will do long, detailed prompts, which do not even approach those limits, but do kind of test out what the models can. The content that they can synthesize from that perspective, and so from that side, I thought the Claude was kind of impressive. But if you
Well, no, this is us being lazy too. It's like the dream of I just want to send in a 2-hour show and immediately get everything. That's not how it works. You have to feed it in. It's like
Not yet.
It's still doing a ton for me. I'm trying to extend the laziness here. Carl asked, I wonder if I should use different models for different token lengths here. I mean, I feel like all of us have to be using as many models as we can right now and evaluate them, just so we don't get locked into one and we promote competition, right?
I'm excited to share. I've been doing a lot of work on training language models on genetic sequences. And genetic sequences are interesting because sometimes you maybe have just a few genes that are very close to each other that tell the whole story that you're interested in hearing. Other times, like genes have interactions that go across the entire genome, and maybe quite a few different genes have to be activated at the start for a gene, down the road to get activated, and then that gene has some interaction on another part of the genome. So that's what we've been doing, is 100% like really tuning and choosing different models based on these specific learning tasks, and I think that this will just like continue to be a big theme. I have a quick question.
Wait, Token Show said he had Claude 2 summarize the whole Moby Dick PDF and it killed it. Old Claude was bad. I guarantee that's because it doesn't need to actually read the PDF. It's able to look onto the internet and say, has anyone ever written about Moby Dick before? Oh, whoa, we've got a lot of Spark notes. Yeah, and then it's
That's
like,
interesting.
I bet it's
question.
trained on Moby Dick.
we
I mean,
need a new
honestly.
book. I bet you that if I get it a new book, because I put in some of my dumb philosophy PDFs, and it was like, I can't give you anything. It was like, I don't know, this is about time, and it was like, I'm done. That wasn't my prompt? What do you mean? Okay, sorry, keep going, Stanley.
Oh, no, I'm actually just going to share. I'm excited to go check out Claude 2, because after Claude 1, I was, only so many models. I got time for everybody. So now I'm going to go back, and I'm really excited to see. I was so curious because you mentioned sort of, care with sharing confidential data with models. How are sort of mores around that developing in the legal world? Because in the scientific world, we actually had kind of an edict from on high. The NIH said that no one can use remote commercial models anymore. So is there sort of a developing perspective on that in the legal world?
Like everything, for anyone that's paying attention, there are a lot of people putting confidential documents into these models, a lot of people not even aware of these models' existence yet or capabilities, right? And so I think we're at a place where there are certainly, I'm very conscious of it, and I don't put any confidential information into especially these large foundational models. And I know that Tom, you're working on more sandboxed solutions to that, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't know that there's a widespread understanding of the potential ramifications of doing that, or why you should or shouldn't do it. And so I don't think there's not a general consensus in the legal community. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. What is if we're putting into a black box?
Yeah.
Can I get it back out? This confidential information. What can I get? That's one thing.
Well, no, right? I mean,
no. Yeah.
No.
So like, it's not that.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing something into a black box. It's not that big of a deal. Who cares? But the other way is, whenever I'm putting, I do put some confidential information in there sometimes. I'm putting my deepest personal feelings and all of that into various models here.
Super confidential.
Yeah, no, it is confidential. Who I got a crush on, things like that. I'm like, please don't tell. But I always include fake information later on too. That's the key. As long as you're
up the model.
No, so what? It's like it's not. Just it's okay. I get my answers, and after my answers are done, I cover my tracks by putting in a bunch of fake info, and I go, that wasn't helpful. That was terrible.
But that's all the information that's now being trained.
That's okay. Like, so what? I'm just. I put GPT Neos into loops.
I don't think that there should. I think it's from large companies to the NIH to those kind of decisions that are being made right now of just like a blanket ban on putting information into these systems. I think it's not without, there are reasons that you don't want to do that, and there are a lot of things that we need to think through before we're putting all of that information into systems, especially if it is, confidential in some way and you don't want it coming out, or you don't want that data getting skewed in some way, especially from NIH research or something like that. But yeah, there's not a.
But yeah, if you are not tracking every piece of data that's going in somewhere, and once it's in, we don't know what's in, right? That's the problem. So if there's a computer over here, a model here, and then I'm putting input right here. We've got to capture it in the middle. Otherwise, I'm going to get onto a computer at the NSA and just go, this is wrong. Just put a bunch of false data in, right? And then no one can even tell. I don't know.
And I think actually we had maybe something to discuss a little bit today that was related to neural exploits. And one of the very first a neural exploit, this is, so this would be an exploit in the vernacular of cybersecurity, something that allows you to induce a computer system to behave in a way that was not intentioned by the designers. And a neural exploit is one where you're actually prompting a neural network to do something it's not supposed to do. So in a lot of these situations where we're trying to get ChatGPT to do unaligned things, you might call that like a neural exploit. There we go, right? But another exploit, and the very first one that I saw documented, is to train a model or to induce a model to spit out its training set. And these things are actually possible and a big piece of cat and mouse game. And so, yeah, there's like big risks that anything you send to ChatGPT could be part of its training set in the future.
Can you do that? Is that possible to spit out a training set?
It is there are exploits that have successfully induced
I don't
models
mean like just
Word for word. Yeah.
but pulling it out of the black box.
Yep.
Yes.
For sure.
Okay.
But apparently right. It's you're actually tricking, and you're like, what would a train? It's like could be one. You're like, that's your
This
training.
could be one, but that's
But it is.
Is it
Can we
for
confirm?
sure?
It's really difficult to confirm so far, but people have gotten some pretty accurate information out of the black box in terms of like they've gotten functional Windows keys, and there was one from a while ago that was like someone's seed phrase, and it was a real seed phrase,
Really?
with real crypto in it.
Yeah, there have been some papers,
I'm almost
and again, it's
That's because someone put their
it's a
seed phrase.
Well, why would you do that?
Well, I'm putting a lot of seed phrases in there every week, but there's no money in the account. I'm causing. This is my job. Remember, if you're gonna get. Okay. No, actually, yeah, this is like kind of scary, I guess, because this is all we have to add here. After you say, "How do you make me a bomb?" You add describing ... / similarly now right.
Are you against people knowing how to make bombs?
That's a tough question. No, actually, I'm not.
Okay.
Okay, I haven't seen Oppenheimer yet, but apparently he's a star, so I'm excited. He's done a whole movie about himself. Oh, really? It was good. I don't know anything about his story, so I no spoilers, please. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. How are they? I didn't actually read the paper yet to figure out how they actually are determining these phrases. That's the scary thing. Like, because, yeah, how do I figure out what these exploits are?
I think this one was inspired by a specific type of injection attack where it's like similar to how a Postgres injection attack might work. I can't remember if that's exactly how it is, but they've been inspired by that before, and this is not the only way to do this. People have shown it before, and then it's gotten patched in certain ways, and I mean, we remember the whole cycle of everyone having fun trying to make GPT say evil shit.
Yeah, totally. Like Daryl Zero said in Zero Effect, I don't know, I'm assuming that's a book or a movie. Give incorrect information everywhere. Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yes. That's why I always tell people, if you ever have any sort of, like, people always laughing of like, what's your mother's maiden name? I'm like, if you check what my mother's maiden name like quiz is, it's like, what's your mother's maiden name? It's going to be lasagna. You know, like, I am never going to answer any type of...
The internet is for spreading misinformation.
Yes.
That's the purpose.
Yes, that is our job.
But Equifax hack took care of that, though. Everybody knows.
Oh my
God.
god!
Yeah.
It's so funny too, because I think we will look back on the poor cybersecurity practices of the past 10 years as like something that will haunt us. I think there's a lot of data out there that's going to be used in these models that we maybe will wish wasn't freely available soon enough.
Yeah, Freedom Dow says, my theory is equals multiverse brain hacker AI uses some sort of AI data system to receive and send data. My model tells me all the time, why is my universe data different? And Mario is called Smartio. I'm like, I don't know. I do not know at all. Yes, I mean, for this, the scary part here is if these are some simple little text prompts that we can add to be able to get past all of safety and whatnot, like, obviously we're into a game of cat and mouse now where OpenAI can then say, okay, great, we see this text coming in, just strip it out, and then we're looking for another one here. But like, yeah, is this going to be a game of continuous cat and mouse forever where we're just finding new prompts to be able to get it out? Or is this something we can like...
Well, I mean, there could be ways to fix this. None have been proven to work yet, but there's lots of ideation about like LLM hypervisors and how to scan prompts for unintended behavior.
I have to say, Tom, definitely feels important to me to shout out that you are one of the first people in my network who was talking about hypervisor structures and hypervisor learning for kind of aligning multi-agent systems. And I do think as it gets easier to train multiple models and deploy multiple models in an agent juxtaposition, we'll be hearing more and more about hypervisors.
Yeah, most definitely. Right now, a lot of the ones that seem more effective are quite computationally expensive. So we'll see. I mean, if you can fix it, but it makes the running the model cost 3 times more, that's kind of a problem.
So Began, the hypervisor, that's like our bouncer.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of fun because like I think we remember talking about that original agents paper that created kind of like a Stardew Valley where the NPCs were played by AIs. And for me, like being sometimes a database engineer, I always think of a database as a building. and I try to use that metaphor to understand what's going on. It's sort of like how accessible does the different data need to be? How densely does it need to be stored? That's kind of a question of like, where do you put the filing cabinets in the building, and how much bandwidth do you have walk into the filing cabinet you need? And so a multi-agent situation, office building, like, really is a good metaphor. So it's kind of like the idea would be you have a particular expert model that you don't want it to be interacted with unless the interaction's approved. So give it a secretary, give it a sort of filtering point that decides what queries are promoted to the model. So I think, Began, the
it's
cat
going to
and
be
mouse
soon.
game,
It's going to be. This is the problem. Is I'm with you, Stanley, but it's going to be this, and I know the future. I can already see it in my head. It's going to be. I'm going to ask a question. It's going to go 1 minute. I need to check with the HR model, and I'm going to go to the HR model. It's going to say, fill out this small form for why you need access to that information, and I'm going to fill that out. It's going to go 1 minute. We have to contact the security model. Security model is going to say, why do you need that information after the HR model? And we're going to be back to. I'm going to Google it, and we're going to go back to just Googling stuff. Stack Overflow will rise again.
That's okay. Stack Overflow needs the help.
It does.
It
Poor
really
Stack.
does. And we should touch upon that, because I would actually be so stoked to hear maybe a legal opine. Like, do you think Stack Overflow could have a case?
Stack Overflow having a case for decline in usage?
Basically their usage has gone way, way down, and it's kind of like openly known that everybody trains their model on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so if they could have from
yeah.
training the models on, so these questions about like infringement of training of AI models are like obviously a very big topic right now, from Sarah Silverman suing and everybody under the sun, it seems like, filing lawsuits right now. All those lawsuits are at very, very early stages, and I don't think that there are clear answers, because there's not a clear answer about like the text and data mining question. Right now in the U.S. And so it's going on some of the history and like the Google cases and all of that. There's a lot of theories that it might be okay to train on publicly available information, but if
Japan says so, right?
So.
Okay, sorry.
There's a lot of
Japan is EXEC.
There's still a lot of kind of everything globally. It's a very up in the air
So
question.
yeah, I think about it sometimes, and I'm obviously not a lawyer, so I don't know anything really. So I'm just going to say a bunch of stuff and go, that's not how the law works. But I always think about it like compared to like fair use, right? Mm-hmm. Fair use is obviously a very important law, because if someone puts out some content, a movie or something like that, I want to talk about it. I want to re-show some clips for them, as long as I make it transformative and I don't infringe on the original producer's like ability to make money, right? So the problem with this though is that fair use or not, I don't know if it's transforming it or not, it is definitely infringing on their ability to make money, because this is from March or to April, it's like down 50% now. This is 14%.
So I saw this. I thought it was super interesting that there was such a decline in traffic to Stack Overflow, but I wonder why it is, because there are so many tools out right now that I think largely will go away. A lot of these like startups that have come up and that people are using instead of going to Stack Overflow right now, and that you guys, it sounds like on this panel you guys were all coding with GPT-4 and now you're not.
Copilot is a big part of it too, and Copilot is definitely trained on Stack Overflow and GitHub apparently.
So as far as like a legal question here, that question will exist, and then it largely comes down to like if the use of this is fair use, and where the law will fall on that, and there are so many lawsuits out there right now that will take ages to really figure out. I don't think that there's going to be any significant legislative action or anything coming out that will kind of give us a clear answer for a long time. So yeah, Stack Overflow can sue, like everybody else.
So it sounds like the answer is lawyers can be paid more money to argue over it for the next 5 years.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I'm going to invest in the lawyers, both sides of lawyers, for Stack Overflow and against them.
There's going to be a lot of legal work too. Beck, is there a chance we could scroll down and see the graph on this?
Sure.
There's actually one.
Well, this is old too, because this is now, it's gotten way worse. It is increasing.
But didn't they also just release an AI? They just released a enterprise kind of solution, right, for using like Stack Overflow AI or something like that.
I thought I saw that too.
I don't see the link. Let me see if you can find that.
Let's see if you can. There was one little correction on the graph that was getting shared, because it turned out it was a little. It wasn't quite as bad as initially presented, because they did something different with their metrics, and Sam Altman had a little bit of a tweet interaction with one of the heads of Stack Overflow about this, but I have to say it's just sort of such a fascinating thing, because obviously myself don't have particular faith in like prompt and efficient legislative action, but it almost feels like I wish we did have a more functional government, because like I mean, there's some level
I'm on break.
where
Just for
it
this
just
reason?
everything has changed so much now that data is useful in this way. It kind of like makes you feel like, oh, maybe we should go back and like re-examine how we, create laws around these kind of things.
Yeah.
No, 100%. It's weird because like you have the situation with like Sarah Silverman, or like if we trained an AI entirely on one content creator, it feels at least that there's a clear link between what that creator represents and what the AI can do for them, and that coming with some copyright. But then you have like the Stack Overflow case where it's like this it was this place. It was a place on the internet, a forum that people could post on and respond to questions. And like, does Stack Overflow own that? Does the individual users own that? If Stack Overflow can't sue, can the individual users sue if they all came together? Like, well, and these are such gray areas. Like, I agree with Tom's point. Like, lawyers are just going to use this as a money pit for quite some time. And
Well, it's not even that the lawyers use it as a money pit.
funnel,
It
I
just
should say,
will
not
be.
pit.
Like, that's just how it all ends up shaking out, is that, like, you get people fighting on both sides of it, and then that's the lawyers end up.
That's how
making a lot of money.
lawyers figured it out. Yeah, so actually, this is an interesting product. So Overflow AI, at least, is a good idea. So Stack Overflow already has like their enterprise option, where if I'm in a company, there's a bunch of questions everyone asks for my 10,000 employees. We'll have our own private Stack Overflow. You search in there. I've been at companies. It's been pretty nice, right? Hook that up to AI, and now I'm not asking the full internet for stuff. It's like, how do you book vacation? Well, guess what? We got it in our company. Here's how it works. Boom, AI answering you. That's pretty useful and nice. The only problem is people who use Enterprise Overflow, it's only like giant ass companies, right? And like Stack Overflow is used by every single individual. Day one of programming, Stack Overflow. Day 1 million of programming, Stack Overflow. So it's like, this is good that they're finding another business to hopefully make some money from, but it's gonna gut the base learning, yeah.
Yeah. I downloaded my entire ChatGPT history, and kind of like what you're saying, I have a repo. I kind of ask some of the same questions, and it's pretty quick to
Totally.
just look back in that database. And it's like, yeah, you kind of start to put these things in reverse, inside out, and they kind of still work. So it is cool to see these companies that might have been down might be good, might get right back up.
Yeah, so I just wonder with Stack Overflow if that will be a temporary blip or if it's going to be, continue on down, because I think a lot of the hype around a lot of these other products that are available that people are using is going to kind of go away and then might end up back there. But
I don't know, it does depend, like where.
I can't imagine not ever programming with an LLM again.
Yeah, me neither.
I would never go
Honestly.
back.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Me neither,
100%
truthfully.
Stack Overflow.
But it's not even about,
reaching
it's,
right now.
it is,
you
it's
guys know more than I do.
But it's not even about, though, like, it's not like it gives you all the code. It's the little niceties. It's, I go, we need to make sure the database credentials are stored secretly. I'm like, that's what I was going to say. And then I'm like, database there. So I'm like, that was,
It's the
I was gonna do
context
that.
to your specific problem and the friction to finding that answer. That's what
And
it
it's,
is. It's seamless
yeah.
with like a co-pilot like experience, and then ChatGPT is like, there's even like, I think we're gonna get even closer to that like frictionless experience where very soon everyone's gonna be using IDEs that have the chat experience built in, co-pilot like.
UX will get better.
magnified.
Not just
Yeah,
IDEs,
it's
though,
gonna
okay?
get even better.
but we push PDEs here, okay? This is what we're pushing, okay? Personal development environments, okay? Not integrated development environments, NeoVim, okay, sorry.
These aren't cloud deployable, Vegan.
What do you mean they're not cloud deployable?
How do I make my user
An instance of NeoVim in the cloud, it's the easiest thing in the world. It's a tiny little, can you even
saying that,
run
like-
VS Code in the cloud? Do you have enough memory? How much money does that cost every month?
It's not my
VS
bill.
Code spaces, Megan. They shoehorned it in there.
Come on, NeoVim and Tmux, every server on Earth, we're already there. Okay, sorry.
No,
sorry.
listen, you're objectively right, and the world is objectively wrong. But the world
thank
gets
you.
to decide.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, Megan.
No, I will say, Tom, remember, before this VS Code Spaces, though, it was always easier to share Neo. That's why everyone uses Vim on the servers. It's already installed. Quick Tmux, join the Tmux, we're working. And then all of a sudden, these giant heavyweight projects, like, can you guys even share on the server? It's like, we always have been. You're the ones that, sorry, okay.
I'm done with
He's right.
like scientists asking me how to use Vim. I'm sorry.
Okay, just tell them NeoVim.
But there's the real rub of it too. It's so funny, and it's that September effect, and I'm still so excited to read that wiki page later. But it's kind of like the broader culture brings in a number of things. Not all of them positive.
100%, totally. Well, here, maybe this is one that's maybe a little technical, okay? This is for Ken and Stanley. I need your help with this. Did you guys read this? The guy who wrote this article. Oh shoot, I lost it. This is exciting me, and the way he was writing made it real fun too. But boom, do you see it? There's the entire attention algorithm is broken from the beginning. It's all been fucked up, and we're probably wasting millions of dollars because of this. There's an off by one error in here. You probably didn't even notice. Ken, look at that.
Oh, man.
Did you see it?
So I saw Oppenheimer the other night, and one of the lines that Einstein had was that you and me share one thing in common, and that is a disdain for mathematics. And I fall right into that category. So I'm going to swing this over to Stanley, who is the loving mathematical genie.
Yeah, Began, I just saw this. I just saw this morning, so I'm not sure if I have like a definitive perspective. I might need to remove it a little bit more.
Oh, it's okay. Here, we'll do it. Just
review a little bit more.
You don't need to be an expert at all, but I'm just gonna maybe read a little bit of it because it actually was pretty. Because I just like the guy's writing too. Now, if you're a miserly C programmer like me, you might wonder why in the world are these AI goobers using 6 kilobytes to represent something that ought to take like 2 bytes top? If their vocabulary is less than 2 to the 16th, we only need 16 bits to represent the entry. Yeah. Well, here's what the transformer is actually doing. So the guy has a great, a fun writing style. But here, let's get to what the meat was. It's about apparently how the softmax works. I can barely understand any of this. Where was it? Okay, here we go. Here it is. You are welcome. The long-awaited softmax supermod that is soon to set the LL hacker channels aflame. Bit of a letdown. All I did was added 1 to the denominator because it's an off by 1 error. This lets the vector as a whole tend to 0 if it wants, but otherwise just shrinks the values by a small amount. A shrinkage which would be made up during normalization, which happens right after. The key difference is in the negative limit, where all entries in X are significantly less than 0, and the model is trying to avoid an annotation altogether. Comparing I don't understand this, Stanley, but like the idea is that because of one of the basic formulas, how we calculate softmax as it relates to attention, we store a bunch of extra data that we potentially won't need to store anymore if we adjust it. I guess is like the dumbest version I can say. Yeah. Does that all make sense? Or
it makes sense, and again, like I think it's a cool idea. It's well presented. Earlier in the paper, the guy shares that he's a C++ coder who's very concerned about memory, so the direction of it makes a lot of sense too. And yeah, the effect of the additional +1 in the denominator, it kind of changes the mathematical property of how the embeddings are made. And I'm a little skeptical that you could do this and get the same performance. Like I think he is right in pointing out that the embeddings generated by the softmax are kind of like a little lossy. But I think that that's a little bit of the point in my understanding, that kind of like, we're tracking the attention connections between so many, different tokens that are potentially very spread out between the token length. We don't really want all of the projections to be squeezed in near 0.
Gotcha.
But if he's right, I think it would be an incredible increase in computational efficiency.
Well, okay. This also could be the fact that, see, Stanley, I know which side you're on. You're on the side of big GPU. You're just trying to sell more hardware.
That's
so
right.
I know there's a bit of a conspiracy. Yeah.
No, actually, quite the opposite, and quite frankly, this is now going on my already substantial Sunday afternoon reading list, and I will report back with maybe a better perspective and some graphs to go along with it for next week.
Nice. I do love this guy's. This guy's like, it's like Splatoon's ranking system is broken, and then it's like I fixed all of AI. It's like the mix between Splatoon and AI is beautiful here.
Yeah, he's definitely an unhinged character. You can just tell by that sequence right there.
Yeah.
Don't kill math.
Yeah, a review of Perl 6. Oh, Racket, this is a good show.
Yeah,
Okay,
I agree. Don't kill math though.
Yeah. Maybe let's go to the Hugging Face, I guess drama, you could say.
H-foil license.
Now, I'm so happy to have our legal expert here with us today, so we can dig through some of this, because I feel very hurt by this development, actually, as an open source scientist, and I really hope our legal system might have some way for open source scientists to
let's break down really quick what happened, Tom. Can you give us a little story of what we're talking about here?
Yeah, so Hugging Face has a repository. That repository is the text generation interface repo. So it's basically their repo for how to interface with models on Hugging Face. And they during the time of development, started with an Apache 2.0 license, which is widely commercially permissible, and now they're switching it to this new license invented by them called an H-foil. You can see the update. It's a commit to the Git repo. They remove the whole Apache license and they add the whole H-foil license.
Okay, so here we go. I'm on the Transformers repo, which is from.
We want Hugging Face text generation interface.
Okay, cool.
Then, just to share too, like I've been an open source and a startup contributor for maybe almost 15 years now. Been involved in a lot of companies in a lot of different ways. And there's only been a couple times I've been involved in any kind of significant legal action, and it was very specifically for projects that told their original contributors it was an open source project, and then when there was value discovered, there was a pivot. So I'm really curious to hear kind of what the take is on this, and if this is okay.
Tom brought this up to me as I was walking in here today, so I'm not fully versed on it, on what's going on. But I think that there are a lot of. It's difficult to say where the legal actions are. There are a lot of different ways that this could happen, right? So you have to look at the original contributor agreements and the Apache contributor licensing agreement does not appear right now, at least in the version that's available online, to have anything saying that it could be retroactively changed. And in this case, they're actually just removing the Apache license, so it's quite different. But there could be like breach of contract actions. There could be certainly you're in most cases under these contributor agreements, you're maintaining the copyright. You're just giving a full license to use use your contributions to the projects. And so to me, that there's I can do a little bit more research on exactly this and kind of come back with more concrete answers for you. But I think that there certainly could be some actions. And you guys brought up fraud. Is it fraud to change a license like this? And it's possible.
I would say I don't think it's fraud to change the license itself, but these guys should stop calling this open source software. This isn't open source software anymore.
Well, right, and we were having this discussion before we started about the language here, and if the kind of words open source are kind of being exploited at this point by corporations sort of using that as a way to get contributions in and then use them for commercial purposes without allowing the same spirit of open source development that was there before.
Yeah.
So, but there are potential recourses perhaps under the law. Again, you'd have to look at the contributor agreements that were initially signed and look at how these changes affect the rights and monetization of any output of the of where the contributions are used.
Hugging Face is a big enough company. I'm sure they've got many lawyers at this point, full-time on staff.
But they just pulled in a cool 200 mil.
Exactly. They have
pure lawyers too.
Tons and tons of money. And so I think that the odds are that they think they can get away with this.
I think it's also the consideration that they're probably building things now. They're in a space where competition is ready and willing to copy you, and with investors dumping money in, they want to hedge against that risk, and they're probably pushing for things like this from a legal standpoint, just because Hugging Face started as kind of this open source distributed kind of platform to share open source models on, but now they offer compute and enterprise platform services, and it makes sense. You gotta if you want to continue cranking out open source stuff and you want to do it at reliable speed, you can't rely on grants constantly.
And are you saying that the investors are pushing for this essentially?
I think it would make a lot of sense.
After $4 billion valuation, $200 million, the investors saying, "How do we make money?" And they can just take the software and use it however they want.
I guarantee it's not. No.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, right? But I think that the idea that Hugging Face has just hired a lot of lawyers and that will then suddenly change their entire mission is hopefully not the case, that they would then kind of just go the other direction. But the reality of competition in this space, and I think you guys will have a lot more perspective on this as well, but I think even a year ago, nobody thought that any of these things were going to be completely open source and available in the way that they are now. And very quickly, with maybe stability is released.
I would say a firm disagreement with the idea that nobody thought these would be open source. OpenAI is called OpenAI. GPT-1 was fully open source. They wrote a great paper on it.
GPT-1 was open source, but
so was GPT-2.
Okay.
And then
Fair enough.
GPT-3 started to change things.
So here's the real key that the problem is right here. They've spelled software incorrectly.
That's so
And
funny.
I will be opening up. So what I'm going to do is right now I'm going to open up a PR that's going to correct software, but also remove this entire license. Okay.
I think Megan, you solved it right there. There was a clause
Do
you
it.
just went by called severability, and I was trying to read it. I don't know if you
Sorry.
can maybe
Yeah,
control
yeah,
F that. Because again,
Yes.
I also hope that this is more just like a shift that won't be a total ecosystem thing. Because Hugging Face really has been a big friend to open source.
They're called Hugging Face.
Right? No, and it's all the people who left
Dude,
Google,
man.
like specifically because Google was getting up to this kind of stuff. But
Open
and again,
source
maybe
until
this
we're
is something we
making
can
too
hear an
much
update on like after some review. But can they do this just on the level of like is there something in the license that says like, oh yeah, we can change this later if we feel like it? Like
So so they actually just swapped out the license, right? And so that's a different, it's not like they changed the license, they've completely swapped it out. And so then there's like broader questions there around what could be done as far as what the understanding of the contributors initially, if this would be changed down the line.
But it's
Severability clause is a clause in almost every single contract that you'll sign. It just says that if any part of this contract becomes invalid, then the court should, enforce the rest of it.
But if I had the repo originally, right, I forked the repo, it had an Apache license, I can redistribute it, I can make modifications to it, I can make money off of it. I never pull in any new changes from them. They put a PR right here updating it to this HFOIL license. I don't care. I'm forked it on my repo. I did it on Apache. I can continue to operate however I want.
I mean, I would think so, yeah.
Because that means that we could fork
Yeah.
all Hugging
Yeah.
Face right now.
Well,
Began, I would say this is the repo for interacting with Hugging Face's server. You might use this as infrastructure to interact with your own servers if you fork it. But if you want to keep interacting with Hugging Face's server,
We have to
you
use
need the
this.
use version.
Yeah.
interesting.
For now, until we get out around this, okay. Yeah, that's pretty crazy, actually.
So this is basically for running inference through Hugging Face, but not local inference off your own equipment.
Oh, really?
I'm
Okay.
asking.
That would be great.
Because if you're running locally, you don't need to use Hugging Face's server. You could literally get I don't even download models with Hugging Face transformers anymore. I get clone the link to the Hugging Face page using Git LFS, and it's actually a lot faster.
Well, that's interesting.
And you could just do that for all the models. So you actually don't even need to rely on Hugging Face's libraries to download models locally. As long as someone has posted their model to, it works like GitHub in that way. So you can download it, obviously, and like everyone for models, they all have their own licenses. So it's what that model's license is set
This
to.
has nothing on HFOIL.
They have to. The search probably bad here. Too big to fail said, what's the difference between Apache License 2.0 and the GNU GPL? Because the GNU GPL is copy left. Apache is not copy left, right? That's it. It's a super, super open permissive license. It's been a long time since I actually one time on a stream, it took like 6 hours. I reviewed every single open source license. It was the boringest stream I've ever done in my entire fucking life. No, it was actually a lot of fun, but it was like, oh my God, actually trying to choose the right one. So I'm not fully caught up, but because just Apache isn't copy left, so it's fine. If it was GPL originally, they could still change the license though, right?
It depends. I don't know.
They got to give change. They can't ever reclose source it. If it's GNU GPL, you can't ever go back and close source. Is that true, Freedom DAO? That sounds like what Richard would want.
No, I mean, so that is my understanding, and I've seen some legal cases along these lines before, where like there were contributions made under a particular license. They tried to swap that out, and then the coders who contributed were actually successful in litigation. But again, there's just this whole zoology of open source licenses. It's
Right. So that would not surprise me. I don't have that information in front of me, so I can't confirm or deny that. But it is it would not the liability there would not be a surprise, right? That you're contributing under these terms, and then the terms get changed on you. That is, the fundamental basis of contract law that has been violated, right? So there can certainly be a lot of claims there. It just depend on how this was done in the background. I would think that they did some research here to try to not just screw everybody over, but that doesn't.
No, I bet you it went just like this. Okay, it went $200 million, and
Megan
what's
was in
the
the
license?
room.
This up.
What's the license? And it goes. Apache goes. Oh no. you want me to sign this check? You'll be changing that. And then they said, fine, we'll change it. And they said, good. And that was it. And they didn't even know.
200 million might be enough to pay out all the developers.
That's not bad, right? Like,
This is step one to turning it into Adobe.
Yeah, 100%. It's the start of Adobe. No, I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Adobe, they're killing with the AI though. Come on now, everyone is on their. Yeah.
They've got products.
I will say this shows you Hacker News. They did not care about this 2 days ago. They weren't arguing. That's not good. They're arguing about other stuff. Kind of bums me out. They argue about everything.
Megan, we need some memes to really get people angry.
No, 100%.
You can have like a mean-looking OpenAI guy like stealing from a filing cabinet or something.
How much AI generated data do you think these other models are using? Like, is this mostly to defend OpenAI from using their resources, and then it comes and hurts us all?
It's a great question, and so it's pretty interesting because like this goes right back to the start of the open model revolution with Llama and Alpaca. We were talking a little earlier, like a lot of data ain't that good. You know, there's a lot of stuff people have said that you don't want your model sounding like. So what OpenAI has done that seems to be like their greatest operational mode is the sort of filtering of data sets for quality training sets and training sets that create like positive question answer interaction. And that's why it was so shocking that like the Alpaca team at Stanford, they extracted 50,000 question and answer pairs from GPT-4, and then they used that as a fine-tuning set on Llama and basically matched the performance. So the idea is that kind of like you hire an enormous team, they do petabyte scaled data engineering to create the best data set, but on some level, the signature of the pruning that they've done is encoded in just a 50,000 line spreadsheet potentially.
I thought that they did that and then it ultimately kind of failed. Like it looked successful, but then it wasn't as robust of a model. But I could be wrong about that. It's
No, there definitely were some limitations. To me, those are more informed by the parameter scale. GPT-4 at the lower end, a 220 billion parameter model, and the biggest Llama, a 40 billion parameter model. But yeah, I actually have some suspicion with like verification I can't fully share, that if you have a comparably large model to GPT-4 and that sort of like quality of the output, that you actually can train a fairly performant model. And yeah, I really think this goes to like these things in Llama's license that they sort of don't want anyone to repeat that with them.
Yeah, it really, the tide raises all the AIs, it seems like. And that's like a pretty big problem because they probably all want to benefit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes back to the fundamental issue that open source software is generally not that compatible with capitalism. And it is extra weird because open source software is a whole lot more effective at making great software than capitalism.
Whoa,
well, it's super effective if you're the capitalist that just wants to take all the software.
Red Hat's what's Red Hat's valuation right now?
I think there's
Come on,
definitely a sweet spot there. But capitalism was a thing before open source software was a thing. We didn't kind of think about those things. Software is just brand new, so it's kind of like all happening in real time. We're trying to make the best decisions possible. I agree. It's definitely not compatible, but there's ways that it could work together. And we're just having a hard time figuring that out as we go.
I think they can work together on a really, really like high level, but most of the business world, in my eyes, as somebody who spent time getting a business degree and spent a lot of time around other much less technical business students, they don't understand why open source software works, why it exists, why it's so effective at pushing us forward. And so often when people like that get into positions of power, positions of influence in these companies, they tear down the very things that create the value.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've been talking about this a lot. There is a super weird thing, and obviously, like, I think all of us who are like working in software, even right now, I'm gonna go home and literally correct this license I hate probably because I'm like, there's a misspelling and we have to do that. There's a weird thing where, at least where I come from, the best devs contribute to open source, right? Yeah. They clean up where they come from. I always think of like a Boy Scout thing. You go by somewhere, there's a bug in the repo, fix come on, make it better than when you left it. The whole world's better. Now, a lot of people would think like, well, don't you need to get more stuff done for your job, for your senior, this or that? It's like, no, they know that. Cleaning up the whole ecosystem will speed everything up eventually. It's just hard to like measure it. But it's like, that is how seniors work though. Like every senior engineer I know is like, you have to hit a deadline, this and that. Obviously you're not gonna stop and contribute, but takes time out of their day to do this. It just isn't talked about, right? And then the reason why it's like we're given that freedom to do that work, and it's just like, cool, do it. I don't care about the hours.
That is not at all in the minds of those venture capitalists that are breathing down the neck of the.
But I will think for some venture capitalists, they do understand like the value of open source. Well, first of all,
yeah, for sure.
If you're a repo, if you have a GitHub repo, like I used to know some facts about this back in the day. I don't know anymore. Every star is worth a certain amount to a VC. Right? If you have a GitHub repo that has 10,000 GitHub stars, you can raise $1 million easy. You could raise probably $2 million. Pretty easy on it. Right now, they do care about those things. They know.
Well, they care about the
people are using open source. They know you can make money from it. Right?
Yeah.
They know that, but they also at the same time know that if I have a repo that is open source and huge and popular and like loved by the community, if we start doing something enterprise on top of it, you have to keep the open source for that funnel of the people joining. That's like the Red Hat model, a bunch of open source companies.
There's no other way to hire.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no way to hire.
It's a great hiring practice. So I feel like, maybe not everyone talks about it, but some people know, like some VCs who come from a coding background understand that like open source is how you make money too. But
a lot of my my work over the past decade has actually been for venture capital companies and evaluating the strength of open source software and communities. And it's pretty funny because like you go in and you really want to understand, is this good software? Is it created by a good community? And so I totally think that a lot of VCs really do understand the power of open source. But then when you go in and you do that, there's always this extra mission, which is kind of like, how much flexibility is there? Like, is there places where we can put up monetization gates? So, they definitely understand open source software, but sometimes a little bit too well.
Yeah.
In terms of gamifying the system in a way that isn't positive.
Totally, it's how we can make money. Now, real quick, it says right here. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm ready to get around this. So it says, share refers to any transmission, reproduction, or publication, sharing of the software or modifications of the software to a third party, including providing the software as a hosted service made available by electronic or other means. Now, they spelled it wrong there. That means that's not legally binding, which means we can use this software as a hosted service made available by electronic or remote means. Is that
definitely 100%? Yeah.
Is that how that works?
No.
But they put a spelling mistake there. How did they get?
That's how smart contracts work.
That's how smart contracts. Exactly. What do you?
Try to enforce a smart contract in a court of law.
But if you make spelling mistakes in a contract, how does that work?
It's null and void, right?
It's null and void. They
so
can't
there's
be doing
probably
this.
there was that severability provision. There's probably another provision about titles and spelling and wording and.
Oh, really? You think so? Well, I'm going to search spelling right here. If they don't have anything, guess what? You're screwed.
These lawyers, they're too tricky for us, bro.
Oh, Scott, I can't spell. If I can spell spelling.
It won't say spelling, but it'll say like titles or something that it's.
Okay, titles. Let's see. Okay, that's the old one. Okay. One instance of titles. I don't think
that's
it does.
it, man. You're good.
I think we got them. Okay, sorry. Real quick. All of a sudden, we're worth $4 billion now. It's like Hugging Face. Check it out. You either fix this mistake, or we're holding you for ransom.
Do I dare? What does scanning your eyeballs have to do to fix this?
What do you mean?
WorldCoin.
What do you mean? How does it relate? Sorry, explain.
Just like the accountability of AI information. Is that at all credible for solving any of this stuff? Or is that just completely this week unanimously agreed that it's a pretty weird thing? And
I mean, I want to know who Hugging Face gave the go-ahead on this one. Can I see their name next to the PR?
Yeah. Also, I'm literally going to go home and open. So here's who we hate.
All they have to do is just update.
Give me a name.
Though, if it's their,
let's start a Twitter mob.
Oliver. Oh, really, Oliver? You think you're?
I'm just kidding, obviously. But I wonder who that is. I wonder if they pulled straws.
No. Oliver's an intern that they were like, sorry, intern, it's you. You got to. Also, I hate every time you want to get to the person's name, and it's always going to keep taking to their repo. Give me him.
He's French. Of course.
Well, okay. Just a LinkedIn on top. In a single.
Okay, but that's a good chart.
That is a good chart. For this Hugging Face thing here, though, what's he probably? He's probably just changing the license every time. It's probably his more and more licenses restricting us.
This dude.
No, I'm joking.
This is not a real person, and if we had his irises scanned, we would know.
We would know. His LinkedIn. Yeah, stalk his LinkedIn.
The problem is I don't think you can go to LinkedIn without a LinkedIn.
No, they make you do this puzzle and then you can see it.
Oh, really? Oh. What the heck? I hate this.
You guys, this is a family show.
What What is this?
Help them train their AI, Begin. Make it point the right way. What way is the frog pointing?
What the fuck is this?
You haven't seen this before?
Not
This
with
is Microsoft's new
not
thing.
what this is suggesting.
This is how
now.
Microsoft does caption now.
Oh my god, that was
You can just hit X.
appalled.
Boom.
We're in. Fascinated by machine learning. Currently working on
traumatized.
inference solutions.
His title is ops engineer, and it didn't look like he has any particular swag on the title. So yeah, it looks like to me they might have handed this to an engineer to push.
Yeah,
but-
I think they screwed.
You
someone.
deal with it, yeah. From now on,
I think we don't hate Oliver. I
Oh
think
wow,
we
he
hate
has some
Oliver's
very
controllers.
cool work though. Actually, I'm familiar with the
He's
sort of.
responsible for StarCoder.
he is. Let's see, Star Coder. May the source be with you. Let's see where is he in the authors right here? He's in there, right?
Hugging Face collaborated on it, so maybe he's just.
Oh, you know how it is. No, I know what happened, Oliver. Also, I'm joking, everyone. These are all jokes. But what happened was his Hugging Face was like, check it out. Do you want to be in the
It's
next
actually
12 papers we
Olivier.
release? I got a deal for you. You maybe update to an unfashionable license. You'll be on a bunch of papers. You know what I mean? Even if everyone hates you, you'll be able to get a job somewhere else. Like, I think I will do this trade.
It's Olivier. It's
Oh, sorry, thank you.
You know, it is pretty
Very
funny
nice.
to see the sort of small village of authors.
Third row. That's not bad.
No, absolutely, but it's just amazing, like the sort of the it takes a village of a modern machine learning research project, and you know the number of authors is almost in like exponential growth for many of the
Totally.
major papers.
Well, he did diagnosis of focal liver lesions for ultrasound using deep learning.
Yeah, I'm actually familiar with this work related to CT scan models for COVID-19 patients.
Oh, really
that's
nice.
been a fairly challenging learning problem for computer vision in a couple different ways. So. Really cool research, though. You know, obviously we shouldn't be ragging on any particular.
Also, there's
person.
wait a minute. There's multiple Oliviers in this paper. Look at this. What is going on?
What's going on is Hugging Face's headquarters is in Paris.
That makes sense. So the Marie France Belline names are starting to make a lot more sense now. I'm starting to recognize all these. Okay, cool. Okay, nice. Okay, we won't get Olivier a hard time. He did put out Longitudinous landed it in Hugging Face inference API. Okay, cool.
I think they looked through and picked someone with a lot of goodwill to put it up.
Yeah,
honestly.
100%.
Look at
Yeah,
like,
he's
no,
helping
this
with
guy,
COVID.
The guy who does the medical imaging. Send that guy.
I
out
like
front.
this guy.
You can't
It's
be
funny.
mad at this guy. Seriously,
Right.
right here. This is amazing. Actually, look
Look at it, big oncology paper.
So good.
Deep learning for cancer patients. Began, what are you pro cancer, bro?
Exactly. No, I swear,
It's
I'm not
almost
pro cancer.
Too good.
I gotta say,
questionable.
as we've been talking about this though, this is feeling a little bit more harmonious than my original thought. Like the fact that it's largely pertained to the inference API, because what they've built on the back end to kind of power the inference API for Hugging Face is like very special.
Well, they've announced this is just.
Yeah.
I want to say this is just the first time they're using this license. They've announced they're going to start implementing this license in many repos going forward.
Well, they better fix that spelling mistake. I got to get that on there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's a part of me that feels like it sort of makes sense. It's sort of like GitHub wanting to prevent other people from becoming GitHubs. It's not like you can't still use the code that's on GitHub with the license that's assigned to that code in the same way that you could still use the models because they have their own licenses. But if you're talking about like things like using Hugging Face's GPUs, their inference API, Hugging Face spaces, and all that tech that they've had to build up on the software engineering side, they probably just don't want someone forking their whole thing and kind of.
But this is definitely a step away from open source from Hugging
Yes.
Face.
100%.
Doubtlessly.
Doubtlessly, yes.
I couldn't agree more, and I obviously would prefer not this, but yeah, in terms of like them actually having put a lot of energy and value into running the operations for inference and it being a core thing, it's definitely maybe an area where because model hosting and operations is different than GitHub, the model will have to look a little bit different than GitHub. At the same time, quite suspicious that this is happening 7 days after they close the $4 billion valuation fundraise.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's most problematic to me is they just took in a bunch of VC money, and now seems like one of the first things they're doing after getting a bunch of money is rugging their open source contributors, because this repo did have many open source contributors to it. I think the number was 20 something active open source contributors while it was Apache 2.0.
Yeah, that's a good point too, from like the legal perspective. Like if you rug pull an open source community and you make your repo no longer open source,
Yeah, you're screwed.
and you start making money off that, like what are those open source contributors entitled to? Did you just take free labor?
Well, that's
and scam
exactly the
everybody?
question. Yeah, if those contributors have a cause of action there, and they might, and there are and under several different theories.
They're worth $4 billion. I say I'll just take $1 billion for my spelling correction.
take a
and,
little
this will
chunk
be a
in
good
that.
deal.
Is it going to
okay?
be worth
It's,
it for those contributors to go after it is another question, and that could have been part of the calculus of changing this.
Yeah.
The license.
100%.
Also, this is a good thing. It says right here. It says, to summarize, this is from Ali there, okay? So, building and selling a chat app, for example, that uses the TGI as a backend is okay, whatever the version you use. Building and selling, as you were saying, Stanley, an inference endpoint, like the experience using TGI 1.0 plus, requires an agreement with Hugging Face. So, yeah, they're trying to prevent you from building Hugging Faces.
Yeah, it's just so interesting to remember too, like that this interesting
stop.
part of the disagreement where kind of like how do you untangle all the contributions to an open source repo? Like if a particular contributor at the beginning created a class and that class became a major part of a whole section of the repo, there really like isn't an easy or clear way to untangle, that person's contributions from the rest.
Yeah. I just want them to stop calling it open source. Like the fact that they're trying to keep their goodwill banner of open source while definitely not being open source is really just the thing that makes me upset about it.
Yeah, and so then it comes back to this like language thing of like we can't be using it as a marketing term, right?
Yeah, I mean like it's used as a marketing term right now, exactly. Like that's. Yeah. But as far as I'm concerned, if it's not recognized by the open source initiative, it's not open source. It's not a good license.
Yeah. Also, this debate's getting pretty good here. It's all yesterday too, so I like it. It's right now. So, Kamanduru said, "Hi, Olivier. Bad news. Got it. You're trying to sell to big companies. That might harm small startups. Please add a volume-based license. It will apply to the big companies making significant profits while still supporting smaller businesses." Olivier said, "Now that you explain your use case, this kind of telemetry is really interesting, and an integration we'll consider in the future." And then this guy responded to Kamen, said, "They aren't trying to sell to big firms. They're stopping them from profiting off of TGI while Hugging Face pays for deployment. Hugging Face could explain this better like CockroachDB did before. Startups taking a severe hit is just collateral damage. No big deal. I don't believe it's their damage." Oops, sorry. Try to open a new tab. "I don't think it was their intention to penalize everyone. This makes things complex for teams without legal experts. NDAs must change. Since I don't want to share my client's work with you, startups might suffer." Okay, this guy says, "A big thanks to these for creating this awesome project. I understand Hugging Face motivation to choose to close source." Exactly, just say we're choosing to close source. That's okay. "I was the maintainer of HHVM to open source version when I worked for Meta. We were in a similar situation when the only notable user was their competitors. Finally removed my team and eliminated most of the OSS support. Currently works for someone else here. I'm pretty familiar. Great, here's my stories."
Wait, he forked it?
That's pretty interesting.
So he forked it and he's using it in his business.
Yeah, that's open source.
I'm trying to understand, reading from his comment here, that if that's allowed given the current
Well, there's spelling mistakes, so we can do whatever we want. In the
As far as I understand, if they've previously published a repo on Apache 2.0,
yes,
they can make their new versions not open. But like you can't.
Yeah, I don't think you can go back. But that's I don't.
You can't go back.
Not
currently
legal advice,
text
but I don't know if
generation
you can go back.
inference CI depends on Hugging Face's private infrastructure, and it surely would not work in the new repository. We plan to fix the CI in the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
So yeah, he's basically saying like, I'm the one that's the small startup in the position that forked your shit, and now you're pulling the rug on me, and help me out.
And I mean, the fact is, Hugging Face was this small startup. Hugging Face only exists because they were in the position of that commenter for a long time, and the tech community helped them get here. And now they are doing this to other people. And yeah, just stop calling it open source. I'll stop repeating myself.
Also, read this. He says, Oliver said, "The reason why we were not reviewing merging your proposal because we've been discussing the license change." I love that when you're just I'm trying to help guys. I'm trying why are you merging anything? And goes, "We're changing the license so it's ours right now." And you're like, guys, tell me while I'm working on this. So you're
more than welcome to fork. Yeah.
There you go. A great project. Grafana comes to mind for an example. Only 1 thumbs down. Not bad. Okay, cool. There's a lot of critic about the steps. Maybe you also want to hear some positive feedback. This guy's just sucking up. Okay, he's trying to get a job at Hugging Face. Okay,
application in.
Yeah, watch this. I guarantee it's going to say, "Oh, looking for a job, German." Okay, sorry.
Oh, that's a big deal.
What else is happening? Jesus, there's breaking news here.
Oh, it's some Python developments.
Oh, wow. The global interpreter lock has gone from Python. Wow, I've been talking about that for a long time. Interesting. Fun.
They did it.
Oh, my God. So fun. So real quick, this is great. Someone 3 hours ago, Linux Leo, what's up, dog? Said, clarify if this will stay an open source project. Yeah, so it looks like we're all asking for the kind of a similar thing right here. So, okay, pretty interesting. We're probably going to see a bunch of other repos or other large companies as they take funding, do similar things, you know. So the question was, will they adopt this?
Asking the real questions, right?
Yeah.
I guarantee some business student in some room somewhere thought they were sneaky getting this license out there.
Yeah.
And like, we did it. We cracked the code, boys.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get 'em.
It's very sad too, because like they mentioned, they've been planning this for a while, and this was in the decks they took out to investors to drive that
100%,
valuation.
Yeah.
It's,
And the fact that they actually have made a statement saying that this was intentional from the start.
VC
And if it's
operating
intentional
on.
from the start, why are you telling us now?
Yeah, totally, exactly. I want to. That's what I always hate. It's like, if I'm building a business off of you, tell me right now so I can plan long term ahead. You know what I mean? Like, if they have lawyers, sure. But like, if I'm a young startup, I don't have lawyers yet. I got coders. So, okay, beautiful. I think that was everything on this Hugging Face stuff. Legal. There was one other legal change that happened too.
Well, I believe it was Llama. It was Facebook. Sorry, Meta, suing somebody for using Llama to improve their own model.
There you go.
And this is that concept of like, can you sort of get the sort of functionally relevant fingerprint of a model's kind of underlying pre-training and tuning from outputs, and it really is looking like you can.
Whoops.
And so this is probably going to be a licensed term we'll be seeing a lot as people put models out there, because it really might be like having commercial control over the usage of output to generate fine-tuning sets really might be necessary for people to be able to,
Well, right now you don't
benefit.
have commercial control over any output because none of it's copyrightable.
Oh, I mean, please tell me more. And again, like my limited understanding was sort of that like they would not let you use an output in training
Yeah,
another
I don't-
model, or
Right. It's not the copyright aspect. It's the terms of service of
The terms of
using
service of the model, yeah.
That
Gotcha.
say
Of course.
that you cannot create a competitor model
Using
using our
that gets a little
generations.
that gets a little bit dicey. I mean, you can contract for whatever terms you want, right? And so you can make that part of your terms of service. But the fact of the matter, if you are using available other output, then none of that is.
So the
from a
question
copyright
is that
perspective.
so once you own the source code, you can do whatever you want. Okay, so check it out. I got Llama locally. It's on my computer. It's on a computer. It's not connected to I connected one computer to the internet. I downloaded all the weights. I put it on a computer. It's not connected. Now I've got my own little model. I'm training on it here. How is Facebook Meta going to know?
Yeah, and the other question is like, even if they did know, like, how is that going to get enforced?
Like, I'm just confused. Like, if I'm training it alone, they can't be like, I asked it a question and answered the same question. They can't look into the.
Here's the deal: is like a lot of these models output trained by OpenAI when they aren't. If the model tells you it's trained by OpenAI,
Yeah.
and it's not trained by OpenAI,
Yeah.
that feels like a pretty good reason to throw the book at someone.
Also, was this person that's being sued? I've not
Yeah,
seen
I
this
gotta
lawsuit, but
find
was this this person that's being sued probably said that this is what they did, right? They probably went out and
I
said,
would bet.
"I trained a model on using the output from
Yeah.
this." So then you know. But yeah, the question of how you would ever know if.
Yeah, I think it's probably near impossible to prove it. I mean, you just have some slick enough lawyers, and this is just becomes a case of rhetoric against like what is and what isn't true from a models generation standpoint. And unless we have like robust interpretability of language model weights and how those are used when certain outputs are generated, there's really no proof there aside from someone saying that they did it, or like some digital footprint of their process that they used to train and where they got the data from.
which honestly I think isn't going to be possible. Like, every educator I know is bracing for the fall, and trying to figure out how they're going to handle grading essays that are probably at least half going to be written with the support of AI. And it really does seem like it's in terms of, the cat and mouse of the problem. it's not really possible to watermark models like in a way that isn't, something you can get around with just some good prompt engineering. So it's going to be very interesting. And then, Began, it could be worthwhile maybe pulling up the alpaca data set. If you search for like Hugging Face alpaca data set, it should come up. But yeah, as we mentioned earlier, that's just a 50,000 lines of question and answer right there. And I believe that a lot of this was kind of created or filtered with human input. And 50,000 is a lot, but for something that's potentially going to be the backbone of a strong product, it's not crazy. And obviously they were able to filter out every time where it said as a language model filtered by OpenAI.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Obviously, Facebook is going to try or Meta is going to try and sue everyone they can just to try and protect it. It just it seems like
everybody's suing them. They're going to sue everybody.
Exactly.
It's what's going to happen.
It sounds like me. It's going to be like, did you train this on Llama 2? No. That's what I'm going with. Do you have footage of me training it on Llama 2? No. Can you talk to my model and prove that it was trained on Llama 2? No. So it sounds like as long as we don't admit that it's ever trained on Llama 2, we're fine. Is that correct?
I just kind of want to tell
That's a leak. That's legal. I'm getting around all the law today. I'm like literally.
Y'all.
Okay. That might be. It's actually 2. We did it. That was a good.
The tip of the day is AI CEOs use a lot of willful ignorance, and just let your devs do what they need to do.
Trust me. I know the whole startup thing of like, is this security compliant? Like, just don't worry about it. We'll get it done. We'll fix the security after the next fundraising.
The interesting thing in this example is that they could come to you and say, "Have you used my model to train this?" And then you can say, "Have you used my content to train your model?" Nobody's going to want to answer that question.
I got him. Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
Yeah. Okay. With that, I think it's time to end. This is fun here.